We will go on in our agenda. It's now Kingfisher Metals. Dustin, yeah, welcome on our stage.
Thank you.
Time 15 minutes. You will get the slides here.
Okay.
This side.
Thank you, everybody. It's a small world those two because EMX actually has an equity position without a royalty in our company. And two of our projects we picked up from Kennerland, and Zach and Francis McDonald are both on our advisory board. I also happen to go to university with Francis, so the mining community in Vancouver is a small world. So Kingfisher is a completely different type of company. We are a high-risk, high-reward spec play. We are early-stage exploration, not a prospect generator, not a royalty company. We are focused exclusively in British Columbia. We're a young, energetic, and discovery-driven team. But we're also unusual at this stage and at this market cap to have such a high institutional ownership. Before I go any further, I wouldn't still be here if I wasn't optimistic, so I will be making forward-looking statements as a geologist. So let's talk about this capital structure. You know, team is really important, and part of our team is also our shareholders. We're at probably now around 50% institutional when you factor in an insider. So some of the groups that are invested in us include Commodity Capital, that is around 6.5%. Plethora Precious Metals also around 6.5%. I know Dow from Plethora is here. Crescat's at 19.9%. And then somebody from, I've been told, the fourth largest mining family in Peru, he's at 19.9% as well, and has turned into being quite a good friend. He actually happened to go find a new showing on our project this summer that graded 50 grams per ton when he wandered off on a site tour. So in addition to these groups, EMX Royalty and Kennerland also have equity positions in the company. Insider within the actual management ownership is approaching 15%. Myself, I've got 4.2 million shares in the company as well. We are at an all-time low right now. So as of this week, we're trading at 10 cents. So I think it is a great buying opportunity for this company. We have about $2.5 million in the bank, and the majority of our assay results from this year are still yet to come. So about the internal team now. So I am a geologist. I've spent about 15 years working almost exclusively in BC. I ran a geological consultancy for about 7 or so years, and during that time I met our Vice President of Exploration, Gail Febo. So Gail's a highly experienced Golden Triangle expert, but we wanted to look outside of the Golden Triangle. However, having her experience there at Seabridge and with KSM, at Bruce Jack, and at Glore Creek, she was able to bring Charlie Gregg into the mix. Charlie, as many of you might know, was recently awarded Discovery of the Year for his Saddle Gold discovery at GT Gold. So with this team here, you know, there's some more overlap with Kennerland, with Rick Trotman here, who's also a director of them, and he runs Barksdale. We've put together this young, hungry team, but we've got a mix of people with analyst and investment banking experience alongside a bunch of young, hungry geologists. So our projects, like I touched on, are all in BC, and they're all 100% owned. We're sitting at 911 square kilometers right now. Gold Range is our flagship asset at 500 square kilometers. Two of our projects, Tibbert and Gold Range, are both high-grade gold stories, whereas Extol, which is actually how I started the company privately, it's a 49-kilometer-long polymetallic VMS belt at Tidewater. I'm not going to touch on the other projects other than Gold Range too much, just due to the time commitments or time constraints here. And Gold Range has been where we've spent the bulk of our exploration dollars. We've now put in about $10 million into Gold Range the last 2 years. So what we're looking for at Gold Range and at Tibbert is orogenic gold. And these systems have been explored quite extensively throughout the western part of North America. They actually extend well off this map down into northern Mexico and through the Mother Lode district in California, which produced the large California gold rush. But where we're looking in southwestern BC is an area that's relatively underappreciated despite an excellent example at the Braylorn mine. So I know Talisker here is here as well. Braylorn produced 4.2 million ounces at 17.7 grams per ton. When we looked at this part of southwestern BC from a regional targeting perspective, what got us so excited was this northern part of the Yalakum Gold Belt actually stood out more from regional data than the Braylorn and Reliance areas. So when we looked at this, there was a big bullseye in this area, and we thought it was in the perfect sweet spot. It is helicopter access, but there's roads at either end. There's a logging road at the north end of the project and an old historic mining road at the south end. But because of that helicopter access, it was not explored through the last century to the same degree as the Braylorn area. There was a couple occurrences of hand mining from the 1930s where the old donkey and mule trails are still visible from the air, but there was not a single diamond drill hole on this project before we completed the first program last summer. And that's exactly what we wanted to do as a new explorer. We wanted to look in areas where nobody had ever looked before. We didn't want to just follow old regurgitated projects. We wanted to make a true bona fide discovery. And I believe we're onto that. So last summer, we completed the first program on this project, and it was focused within the cloud drifter trend at the southern part here of this project. So it's a big project. It's 511 square kilometers. There's numerous showings across the project. Most of them are defined by exceptionally high grades, over an ounce per ton. But the cloud drifter trend is really been the center of focus. And what caught our eye there was in 1987 and 1988, Ross Beatty's first company. So he started his career with Equinox Resources. He's apparently ending it with Equinox Gold. And given their share price, his career might be going a little longer. I'm a shareholder of that actually, and I hope it turns around soon. But he started with Equinox Resources, and they had a huge portfolio of projects across British Columbia. This was one of them. It wasn't in the same 511 square kilometer format. It was a small area down at the southern part of the project, the cloud drifter trend. They went to this area where there was some hand mining done in the 1930s, and they did some reconnaissance soil sampling. This soil sampling turned out to produce a pretty exceptional anomaly. They proposed drilling and trenching in their annual report in 1987, 1988. Gold slipped below $400 an ounce, and it was never followed up on. And it was actually never followed up on until we went there in 2020. So it was a great opportunity. We went there and infilled this soil anomaly, and it produced 50 samples over a gram per ton of soils. So this led to us having a very large market cap going into our first drill program, which I think had some unrealistic expectations, and we had our shares came back big time off a very encouraging initial results. But that doesn't change the fact that there's a large gold system here defined by this anomaly, and we're really just starting to get into it. So the area I'm talking about, the cloud drifter trend, this is what it looks like. We're in southwestern BC, so it's often very sunny. I spent a lot of my time working in the Golden Triangle. Went through a lot of raincoats, had a lot of close calls, nearly getting left out in the mountains with a helicopter unable to pick me up. That doesn't happen here. I've been here in October, and it's been on top of one of these mountains. I've been in t-shirt and shorts, 25 degrees Celsius in mid-October. So that gives us a much longer working season, which has been really beneficial. Last year we were out there in this year we were out there in early May, and we finished around October 17th. So we've got about 6 weeks or so on either end on top of what the Golden Triangle would have. But then we're also not that long of a drive. I can drive there from the Lower Mainland in a pretty casual day. The only reason I'll have to stop is to let my dog to go out and swim, because it's been so hot in southwestern BC the last few years. So this area here is a 3x2 kilometer trend. Lots of mineral occurrences throughout it. We were joking as a young exploration team out there as a private company. We would call it a discovery a day, because you'd go out there, you'd follow up on a historic soil sample, and you'd dig a pit and you'd find a vein. And that vein would run very good gold, as evidenced by almost 400 rock samples grading over 6 grams per ton. So this is a really gold-rich environment, and our initial drilling was fairly wide-spaced last year. The top intercepts from last year were 6.9 grams over 9 meters, but then we also drilled an exceptionally high-grade intercept of 73 grams over a meter. That drilling last year was confined to a small area, though, and what's shown on here is the cloud drifter zone. You can see right over here, just on the right side of the image there. So this year we went back and completed a 7,500 meter program, mainly focused on the lower part of the mountain, but we also spread out to touch the Langara zone to the east. And we also did some percussion drilling south of there at the Day Trip zone. So what we've seen so far this year is more evidence of a large mineral system over the 3x2 kilometers. We've put out 6 of 29 holes so far, and we broke the 100 gram meter kind of threshold that every geologist wants to see on an early stage project. We drilled 2.9 grams over 40 meters within about 100 meters of surface, which includes several higher grade intervals within that. So what we're seeing right now has us really encouraged. We know we're going to have more gold across this trend. It's a gold system, so I don't know exactly where it's going to be, but it was enough to keep us drilling throughout the program this summer with a lot of excitement. What we did at Day Trip Zone to the south of there is percussion drilling, and what we're doing there is looking at a target that came about on a camping trip. And this is pretty good evidence for the amount of gold on this project. Back in 2020, when everybody was getting Zoom fatigue, I remember sitting at my computer kind of losing my mind, pulling my hair out. Our team was at a different project of ours, and I went up there with a couple friends who aren't even employees of the company to go camp, and I said, I'll give you guys a free helicopter ride into the mountains if you guys take soil samples with me for 2 days. So I walked this ridge line that I saw an interesting looking Gaussian on from Google Earth, walked across this ridge line and managed to find a new area of subcropping mineralization grading up to 20 grams per ton. That doesn't happen that often in your career, and we've done that subsequently again this summer with an investor in that area, finding a new vein a kilometer away from there. So what we did this year there was shallow percussion drilling down to about 70 meters depth, encouraging intercepts about 2.7 grams over 4.5 meters. So good initial results, but then we did deep IP there and extended an anomaly to over 2 kilometers in size, which looks very similar to the cloud drifter trend. So I think the big key here is we've got a lot of these targets across this project, and we're just starting to fan out from the real center of gravity here at the cloud drifter trend. Before I go any further, though, I just want to point out why we were interested in this cloud drifter trend, and it really comes down to this soil anomaly and the size of it compared to other well-known deposits. So if you look at the data here, this is the cloud drifter trend. This is the cloud drifter trend on the top left. You've got Barkerville, Coffee, and white gold, and you can see what we're dealing with is the expression of a large gold system. The tenor is very similar, and the initial results point to there being a large gold system here. All right, running out of time here, but I would suggest if you want to look at more of these results in more detail, go on to our website, look at our presentation. There's a lot of gold here. Initial impressions are really encouraging, and the majority of the results that we have drilled so far on this program, about 50% of the total meters over 2 years, are yet to come out and should start flowing probably early in the new year. Labs have been really delayed. It's been quite frustrating, but we're drilling good mineralization, and I think people will be pretty impressed with what is yet to come.
Thank you very much. Okay. Maybe a question, when we will see results?
So we put the first results out about a month ago. Mm-hmm. And to be honest, the assay lab hasn't sent me a lot of emails since then.
Okay.
So I don't know if we're going to be getting anything out before the end of this year, but I would imagine that...
Is it the lab in Vancouver?
So we've been using Chrysos and Photon Assay, the same group that Newfound Gold is using. We've been shipping our samples to Val d'Or. They get prepped in Vancouver, so they're much smaller than they get transported to Val d'Or. There's some growing pains with that new technology. It works. I'm very confident in that, but the company using the lab is having some growing pains in terms of figuring out. If anybody wants more detail on this.
Yeah. More questions? Or I would say you're here the full day for one-to-ones.
Yep.
So there you can go into more details. Thank you very much.